Hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here, and I hope that you're all feeling okay and that your day has been going well and that you've been enjoying and being enriched by all of the amazing presentations that we've seen so far. I know that I find that my head is absolutely reeling with the wonderful data and analysis and quality of all of the lovely things that people have been sharing about. So you're here, and this session is called Motivating Action on the Climate Emergency Through Art-Based Activities. And I'm Chloe, and I am an artist and the founder of the Art and Energy Collective. And I'm going to talk to you a bit today about our work. But before we get on to my presentation, I thought it would be worth sharing a bit about why I think art is great. And I hope that you'll be willing to share in the chat some of the reasons why you also appreciate the arts in relation to climate engagement and climate motivation and inspiration. So I have said in the past that I think that the arts is a bit like renewable energy for the imagination. It's they have the ability to inspire us and to stay with us, and those experiences in the memory can shift and change over time and grow over time and help us to create a sense of meaning, motivation, and and that's something that really gives us energy for taking action. Without meaning for action, it's difficult to sustain action over the long term. And when I think about the future and I think about the past, I think about how the arts are a fundamental part of human expression and human experience. In fact, one of the very earliest tools that humans created was a needle. And so, around 20,000 years ago, people were making textiles. They were creating together, sitting, making things together, sharing stories. And I really feel like all of the art forms have their heart and their root in pre-industrialized societies. So they are, in essence, low carbon activities to be doing. So when I imagine an amazing, bright green future where we've figured everything out and we're living that rich, abundant, healthy, well life that's in harmony with the natural world and in harmony with our communities, I think it's full of dance and singing and theatre and painting and stitching and cooking and gardening and all of those wonderful creative things that are in the essence of humanity. So for me, nurturing people's creativity is a radical act that is pro nature positive action, is pro helping people take steps on that journey towards brighter, greener future. So having said all of that, I'm going to share a little bit on the screen, and hopefully this is all going to work. Okay, nearly there. Oh, it would help if I was at the beginning of the presentation rather than partway through. Okay, so you can see me on the left-hand side and my colleagues. So it's Naomi and Jenny and Kat, and we form a collective. And the nice thing about being in a collective is that you have the opportunity to be talking to each other a lot about creative fun stuff. And that's a really, really essential part for me of being creative in response to the climate emergency. And I think it's to do with the fact that it's something to do with accepting that we're all on a journey from not knowing very much through to a future that is difficult to imagine, and that the steps on that journey are easier to take when you're going on this together. Now, Naomi is an ecologist by training. Her background is in engaging people with nature-based infrastructure. Jenny is a glass maker, and Kat she deals with our communications, and she came from Devon Wildlife Trust. So we are, I suppose, very keen on nature-based creativity. Now, in today's session, I'm hoping that it's going to be a bit more, well, maybe a bit relaxing. I'm hoping that you can kind of drift through this workshop and feel maybe a bit recharged, a bit, like ready for the next thing. But saying that, I'm also hoping, given that it's got the word workshop in it, that you might be willing to participate in an experiment. So, part of inviting people to be creative is about meeting people where they're at. And here we are online, trying to be creative in a digital environment where I can't really communicate very easily because there's like a delay between what I'm saying and coming through the system. So I'm going to invite you to share some creative stuff, and I'll show you how in a minute. And then I'm going to share a bit about some of the mass participation creativity that we have been involved in, and tell you a bit about how we've involved people. And I'm going to share our framework for creative engagement, which may or may not be useful to you if you do work with people around climate engagement. This might give you some ideas. And I'm going to talk a bit about invitations to join in and how we invite people to join in different ways. And then towards the end of this workshop, I'm going to be inviting you to get a pen or a pencil out and some paper, and I'll play a story which is relating to our current project, and I'll be inviting you to do some doodling. So I hope that those are things that you feel able to do during this session. So the first thing that I'm hoping you'll consider doing is to share an example of climate creativity. Now, I don't know whether you've spotted on the Net Zero Exchange platform, on the left-hand side, there is a thing called discussion boards. And there is a discussion board which is called Creativity for a Brighter, Greener Future. And I'm hoping that you might be able to share some of your experience and knowledge, because I'm hoping that most of us have got some experience and knowledge of creative practice. But if you've come across or part of creative projects that deal with climate engagement or climate creativity, this is the place to share it. And this is not just for now. This is a resource that I hope will grow and be of use to anyone else who is thinking of developing their own creative climate project. So I'm going to leave that one with you, and I hope that you'll find something that you can add. And you'll notice, if you go on, that there is a piece that I've already shared, and this, I thoroughly recommend having a watch of this later. This project is called Power, and it's in Walthamstow, and it's a group of artists who basically tried to set up a power station on the roofs of their neighbours' houses in their street. And they are completely wonderful artists, doing really provocative and engaging and challenging work. So that's just an example of the sort of project that one might share on that discussion. Now, to tell you a bit about the Art and Energy Collective, we specialise in designing mass participation artworks, but that's not where we started out. We started out, I have been working in the renewable energy sector for a number of years and had been exploring and considering the ways that we engage people in the transition to a net zero future. And one of the things that I could see was possible was it would be possible to make artworks that look beautiful. And that's because of the way that solar cells can be created and manipulated and put together, made it possible for us to combine those cells in aesthetic ways. And so what you can see in front of you is one of our first solar artworks. So it is a solar panel that does function and generate electricity. And the purpose of that was to show that solar panels in the future might not look the same as what we experienced, the inky rectangles that we all see, that might not be how the future is. The future might not just be utilitarian. The future might be beautiful. And that project was really interesting. It showed me two things, really. First, it showed me that it's very difficult to communicate a new idea without giving people something to look at. So I spoke to hundreds of people to explain the project, and it was actually often only when people saw the solar panel and then indeed plugged into the solar panel artwork that they began to believe that this thing was real. And the second thing that I discovered was the wonderfulness of working with people. So obviously, no artist makes work on their own. And as a collective, we certainly don't make work on our own. But there is something really exciting about working with other people and meeting people in a creative artwork project where they're bringing their experience and their tacit knowledge and their interest, and then can work together to make something beautiful together. So there's something about sharing knowledge through creative practice. There's something about valuing people's skills and capacities, valuing their knowledge, that is really, really exciting from a kind of mobilizing action perspective and celebrating action point of view. So making solar panel artworks was great, but it didn't engage as many people as we might have wanted to engage. And COVID struck, and all of the projects that we were working on before kind of fell apart and came to crunching down. And we started thinking about how we might help people engage with COP. So we wanted to make a piece for COP26, and we wanted to work with the Plymouth Energy community, and we wanted to work with lots of people across Plymouth to make an artwork that spoke to our relationship with our energy system. So our dependence on our electricity system and the challenges of speaking to power. And COP26 came at a time where people couldn't travel much, and people wanted to be represented at COP. They wanted to find a way to engage with COP. They didn't even necessarily know they wanted to be present at COP until we gave them this creative vehicle in order to be able to engage in the way that they wanted to. So this is a short video that is a summary of the project, and I hope it will give you a sense of how we work. So one of the things that I learned, well, I mean, there's so many things that you learn through running your own creative project and making an artwork. You don't always know where you're going to get to when you start. You've basically got an invitation for people to join in and explore together and share together. And you make the work as best as you can. And you learn through doing it. And you learn the things that mean something to you, the things that work. And that that work in itself gathers momentum of its own. So, you'll have seen at the end of that other people have still continued to take that metaphor and that narrative on. But there was a lot of stuff that we learned about what we want, how we wanted to make art in the future. And I think a lot of creatives wonder how they might be able to use their creativity to support the transition to a zero carbon economy. Now, we were very fortunate that Plymouth Culture was also interested in exploring how creatives might have an important role in responding to the climate emergency. And so we developed a creative engagement project development framework, and it had back in 2022 these 12 elements that were about acting in the face of climate change and having the courage to make art because it matters. Making art is an important thing to do. You need to find a way to live well, no matter what the future brings, and art making is a great way of doing that. Importantly, we realized that what felt like was missing, and we're still developing, is this idea of an energy lens. And this, we felt like looking at the world through what we call an energy lens helped us and the people around us think about our energy systems in the natural world and in the man-made world in a slightly different way, and that act of looking through that lens helped give people a sense of understanding of what they're part of and how they might be able to find freedom and within it. And the third most important thing in this list was about accepting that we're part of nature. We have considered this idea of having nature on the board, which is an idea that some organizations have a representative who is the voice for nature on the board, which is great. And we think that maybe there is something kind of, when you go beyond imagining nature as a persona, but you maybe imagine nature as a teacher, and the fact that whilst we speak human languages, that all of nature has wisdom and all of nature has intelligence, that we just might need to develop new ways of understanding, and that nature can teach us. That we feel like those three elements, making art, considering energy, and rooting what we do in trying to reconnect with nature, is really, really powerful. But we also noticed that hope was really an important feature for participants. The poetic, finding the poetry in this transition that we're going on was really important. Playfulness, kind of memory making, eco reminder objects that live with people, that people want to exchange, was really important. Encouraging people to recognize their own personal creativity and to be within their creativity and take steps from where they're at within their creativity towards that brighter, greener future. That really important. And also bringing together people from different sectors. So people talk about interdisciplinary work, and I think that, even outside of academia, exposing ourselves to people with knowledge and skills can really give us hope, can really give us confidence that there are people out there in the world who are actually taking action. And creating spaces where people can come together and be and communicate in that kind of anti-charged space. Climate emergency, as you will all know, is such a highly charged space. It's very difficult to avoid burnout or avoid eco-anxiety or avoid difficult and charged discussions. But those creative platforms where you give people opportunities to be together through making and through imagining and through fun, they are so helpful for repairing and restoring the sorts of community that we need for our health and well-being. I think one of the things that is most exciting about art making is the opportunity to experiment and take risks and to not be too burdened by the need to get it right. And in most aspects of our life, we need to feel like we have control over the end point of what we do. Whereas when you kind of let go of needing to control the end point and you just start where you are and go in the general direction of something and try things out and accept the opportunities that come with learning, that can really open up what's possible for you, and it can open up the possibility of change. And I suppose that's where we come from the point of artists as cultural leaders, is that it's, although we might not be technical experts and there are people who are better informed, that we do have the opportunity to really, really make a difference within our communities by bringing together people who wouldn't necessarily come together in any other circumstance. And above all, I think that making time, celebrating success is really, really important. So that's our creative engagement framework, which we think supports people. And what we've not added into this yet is really an explicit thing about eco-anxiety and the role of creativity in alleviating eco-anxiety. And what we're noticing is people, like so many people experience eco-anxiety, but the polls of those who have been immersed in this climate change agenda for a long time and are in that burnout place, that creative activities can be really restorative, really healing, really, really helpful for gaining new perspectives and supporting the new innovation and connecting across areas that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And it's equally but differently beneficial for people who are at maybe more of an entry level, beginning to try and figure out what their role is within this very complicated arena. Basically, it's just impossible for all of us to do everything, isn't it? So creative experiences just allow us to find our thing and to do our small thing. And that's really where the How to Bury the Giant Mossy Carpet project came. Our How to Bury the Giant project is looking to mosses for inspiration, and it's through understanding the magnificence of mosses, we are able to find ways to celebrate tiny things. So here's a little intro to that project.
Hello, we're part of the Art and Energy Collective, and we make mass participation artworks inspired by nature for a brighter, greener future. A mass participation artwork is a piece of art that's been made by lots of people working together, and we hope you'll join us in helping us make our new piece called The Mossy Carpet, which will celebrate all the tiny actions we're taking together in response to the climate and ecological emergencies.
We would like you to make a mossy pom-pom or textile tuft and to record a message sharing a tiny thing you're already doing to make a better world. Your tufts and messages will be woven into the mossy carpet. Over time, we want it to grow to give each other hope that we can all work together to make a difference.
So this 10-metre roll is the beginning of the piece, but we hope to make it much, much bigger. With your help, it could be 30 or 50 metres or even longer. It would be great if you could help by getting your friends involved too.
The first thing that we'd like you to do is to look at moss. You can find moss everywhere, growing in the cracks of the pavement to all the way up on the high moorlands. Look at the way it grows, the different colours, its amazing shapes and the feel of it. We've been so inspired discovering all sorts of things about moss. It's the first plant to have populated the land 450 million years ago, and after devastation it's the first plant to bring abundance back to abandoned places. It nurtures all of life, providing a home for all sorts of wildlife, and it's used by lots of animals to make their nests and dens warm and clean. Despite being tiny, it's one of the most important plants. It purifies the air and it buries the carbon, which is the cause of climate change, and it also reduces flooding after storms.
After you've had a good look at the moss, then it's time to get making your textile piece. You could choose to make a pom-pom, to knit, to crochet, or to embroider. There are lots of techniques you could use to create something inspired by the moss. It can be something really simple or experimental, it's up to you. Use what you've already got to make your textile tuft. You don't need to go and buy something new. And if you don't have anything at home, then check out your local scrap store or charity shop first. Your materials don't need to be green. Use the ones you've got to hand and give them a new lease of life. Your small textile creation will represent you and your positive action for the planet on this mega carpet. You can post it to us at the Art and Energy Collective, PO Box 961, Exeter, EX1 9DF.
As you've seen, mosses are very small and they each do something tiny that nurtures all of life, and together they make a big difference for our world. Now, deep in the moss forests live amazing creatures called tardigrades. They are awesome. They live in harmony with the mossy world they inhabit. When the mosses dry out, they do too, only to come back to life with the moss. They can survive being frozen, and they've even been in space. Here's a giant tardigrade that we've made. It's very round and it has 8 legs and a tiny snout. Some people call it a moss piglet or a water bear. Now, we'd like you to pick up the phone and tell the tardigrade what tiny thing you're doing for a brighter, greener future.
So, in amongst your mossy textile pieces, we'll be adding some e-textile elements. These will act as sensors, setting off audio kits which will play your audio messages. So when you stroke the carpet, this is how your message will play when it's added to the carpet. You'll be able to hear some of the amazing things that we're all doing together to make a difference.
You can make your textile pieces on your own with friends or family or your community group, and you can find resources to support this on our website. Now, we know that many people feel like it doesn't matter what they do, and it can be hard to have conversations about climate change and biodiversity loss. Sometimes we don't even know that our friends and neighbours are already doing amazing things. So let's celebrate our mossy world by making this artwork. We'll be sharing our actions and ideas and giving hope for a brighter, greener future.
We can't wait to see your creations and hear your messages. Thank you for showing you care.
So the mossy carpet has been growing since we made that about a year ago now, over a year ago now, and the project has grown quite significantly, and there are resources on our website that allow people to engage with the narrative, which is essentially a narrative about finding agency and finding meaning for your own action, And but that people need lots of ways in. Not everyone is going to engage in the way that you might initially want them to engage. So finding ways for people to go in through their interest, through science, through crafting, through land care, through through all all sorts of different avenues can be very helpful. Now this Saturday is the end point of our big crowd-funded activity on the mossy carpet, and we will be spreading out 50 meters worth of the carpet, which has been made. I know that this says more than 10,000 people. That's 10,000 people in and around Plymouth. But actually, over the course of the whole project, there's been more than 20,000 people who've been involved in making the carpet. And we would really like you to come along and share with us the tiny actions that you've been taking, and then take your own walk of fame along the carpet and really have a chance to take your shoes off and feel the mossy carpet beneath your feet. Now, I'm not going to play this piece for you because I've totally underestimated how long I was going to speak for, and I'm really sorry about that. But I was hoping that I would be able to share with you a piece called The Mossy Story by Misha Colombo, and invite you to have a listen to this. In fact, because we've got a break after this, I might just press play, and I haven't noticed any questions popping up through this session. So, but I have seen Debbie and Liz. Thank you ever so much for sharing those links of things, links of creative projects. I really hope that anyone can add any more or share any others. And I'm going to start playing this. I think I will start playing this story. It is, how many minutes is it? It's kind of 20-ish minutes. So it's going to take us a couple of minutes beyond where we were hoping to finish. But I hope that you'll let this play you out, and you'll have a little doodle of maybe some mosses, and maybe have a think about what that act is doing for you, what that allowing yourself a little bit of purposeless, just gentle enjoyment does for helping you process, helping you reflect on what you're hearing. So thank you so much for joining this session.
A Mossy Story by Misha Colombo. Do you like daydreams? This story's about a daydreamer. Once upon a time, the time being just after lunch, in a classroom in a school perhaps like your one, a boy was staring out of the window, lost in a wonderful dream about tigers. Jay! Until he realised his teacher was standing right in front of him. Jay! Miss Edwards' face floated above him. Is everything okay? You seem miles away. Some people giggled. Sorry, Jay murmured. Try and concentrate. This is an important topic. She smiled at him and returned to the whiteboard, writing C-A-R-B-O-N with a flourish. Who has heard of carbon before? Hands went up. Does anyone know where we can find carbon? Is it in pasta carbonara? Someone suggested. Is it what orange juice comes in? Came another question. Not quite, answered Miss Edwards. My granny's got a carbon hip, someone said. Tennis rackets are made of it, and pencils, were other suggestions. Yes, those are human-made things using carbon, Miss Edwards encouraged. Anything else? Is it in petrol? Someone asked. Yes. A lot of our energy, for now, comes from carbon, Miss Edwards replied. Carbon is all around us, even inside us. If you breathe out, that's carbon. Everyone breathed out loudly like dragons. Carbon dioxide! Came a shout from the back of the room. Well done, Miss Edwards said. It's also in diamonds, coal, animals, plants, soil, even the inside of stars is carbon. But Miss Edwards paused dramatically, looking around at the children. Carbon is a giant problem. Does anyone know why? Is it pollution? That's right. Carbon starts in the ground, makes all living things, and then when they die, the carbon rots back into the ground again. It's a cycle. But us humans have got into the habit of taking carbon for fuel and other things, and that's made too much carbon spread into the air, which is making nature a bit stressed. We need to help nature get healthy again. We need to keep carbon underground where it belongs. So what can we do? People talked about solar panels, electric cars and recycling. Jay put his hand up. Stop breathing so much? Some children rolled their eyes. Miss Edwards frowned. Thank you, Jay. Any other ideas? Jay's cheeks flushed. He'd got it wrong again. His mind rescued him into an emergency daydream. He imagined a massive giant. The carbon giant was black and smudgy like coal, with pencils for fingers and tennis rackets for feet. It burped fire, crushed trees, and its eyes were two dazzling stars. The ground was hot where it trod, but in its soily footprints you could find diamonds, shining more brightly than the sun. Later, Jay was sitting on the low stone wall in his Nana's garden. He loved being there. They were eating gooey chocolate cake in the sunshine. Do you want to talk about it? His Nana asked. Talk about what? Jay replied. You have a face like a rain cloud. Bad day at school, I guess. Is someone bullying you? No. Did an elephant squash your toes? No. Jay smiled a little. Did a mouse steal your lunch? Nibble, nibble. She tickled him. Nothing like that. I keep accidentally daydreaming and then I miss the questions. I feel so stupid, Jay sighed. They both looked out over the garden. Are your dreams more fun than the lessons? Nana asked mischievously. Sometimes, Jay grinned. His Nana shrugged. Then you're not stupid. Jay started to cry. Big fat tears that dripped onto the wall. He watched one big drop splash onto a patch of moss in the dark crack between the stones. He stroked it with his finger as he spoke. I don't know what to do. I know what you can do, his Nana replied, her eyes twinkling. Tell me one of your dreams. Jay swivelled round to face her with a broad smile. OK, so, once upon a time, there was this carbon giant. The next thing Jay knew, he was sliding down, 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 fast, whizzing so loudly that everything became a blur. He looked over and saw his Nana, her eyes wide, like that time they went on a roller coaster together. Without a word, they grabbed each other's hands. Is this your dream, JJ? His Nana shouted over the rushing noise. He shook his head. Their hands squeezed tightly as they landed with a muffled bump on a green, springy carpet. A creature stood in front of them, short and plump, with 4 pairs of legs. It looked like a mix between a pig and a woodlouse, and it was grinning at them. Is it really you? It said. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. It started to dance. It feels good to move, doesn't it? Jay rubbed his eyes. His Nana's jaw hung open. Where are we? Jay finally managed. Mossland, the creature replied, in the cleft of the, its face squeezed in concentration before suddenly shouting, "Moss, what's the name of these mountains?" From underneath their feet, a deep, slow voice rumbled, "Wall." "Yes, that's it. Wall Mountains." The creature smiled. Jay and his Nana looked at each other in shock. "Moss and I are friends," the creature continued. "We go everywhere together. Moss is wise, and she says I make her smile." "And who are you?" Jake asked. "I am Tranaki Satina Taram. We tardigrades are famous for our long names, but you can call me Tina, if you like. That's what Moss does. She prefers to keep things simple." "What did you say you were exactly?" Jay asked again. "A tardigrade. Some call us moss piglets." She stared at their blank faces. "Water bears?" Still blank faces. "We're everywhere. I prefer moss, so cosy. You can learn a lot from moss if you take the time." "Welcome," added Moss, slowly. Hi there," said Jay, awkwardly waving at the ground. "So, you're tiny," Jay's Nana said, pinching 2 fingers together. "Like a speck of dust." "Only to you," Tina replied. Could it be true? By some magic had they shrunk down into the moss on his Nana's wall? Jay shook his head in case he might actually be dreaming. "Why are we here?" he asked. "A kindness needs a kindness in return," said Tina seriously. "You did me the great kindness of waking me with water. It was you, wasn't it? I feel it in my tummy, and as my grandfather used to say, a tardigrade's tummy is rarely wrong. So I've invited you to my home." "My teardrop," said Jay, suddenly realising. "I saw it soak into the moss." "Yes," replied Tina. "It was exactly what I needed. I've been sleeping for weeks now, waiting to wetten up again. We need lots of water, Moss and I, otherwise we shrivel and stop." "Thank you. What is your name, bringer of salty rain?" "Jay, and this is my Nana." "Hello, Jay. Hello, my Nana. Welcome to the mossy carpet." Tina skipped in a wide circle as she sang, "Swirls and feathers, spirals and hair, fronds and pom-poms, you'll find them all there. Cushions and blankets and softness galore, pillows and hammocks and so much more. Stringy and bushy and squashy and green, the finest moss carpet that's ever been seen." "Can we sit on it?" Jay asked. "Sit, lie, roll, whatever you please. Tea?" "I thought you'd never ask," said Nana. The tardigrade pulled from somewhere a large wooden pot with 3 spouts and 3 cups. She poured the hot green liquid into the cups, handed them out, and then sat down next to the others with a gentle "Oof." They sipped in silence for a while. "What's this tea made of?" asked Jay's Nana. "A secret blend of herbs, but mainly spit and vinegar." Jay winced. "It is delicious, though," he said, "like chocolate. And my Nana's cakes and mushrooms," the tardigrade added. "And popcorn," his Nana joined in. "I don't know the plants you speak of," said Tina, "but I agree, it is rather good. I drink it 5 times a day." "Why do you drink so much tea?" Jay asked. "Because it's delicious and full of answers," Tina replied. "I never knew tardigrades existed." "No offence," Jay said. "Tardigrade tea is famous for its honesty." Tina nodded knowingly. "What kind of giants are you two, anyway, when you're full size? Space lions? Sky whales? I have a feeling I've seen you in my telescope before." "We're humans," Jay replied. "Moss killers!" Tina recoiled a few paces. "You like rakes and moss poisons, don't you?" She gulped nervously and stroked the carpet. There was an awkward pause until his Nana said, "Jay was in the middle of telling me a story before we came here." "Oh, I love stories," Tina gasped. "Can I hear it too? Does it have caves in it? I love stories with caves in them." No, said Jay. Not yet, corrected his Nana. It's about a giant. Like you. Bigger, his Nana smiled. Tina's eyes grew wide and she leaned in. Jay repeated his carbon giant story to his Nana and Tina. His Nana listened intently. Tina asked a lot of questions. She finally said, I get that the people collected diamonds from the giant's footprints. I probably would too, if they were all sparkly. But then, what did they do with them? They built a sparkling world. In fact, it became so bright they had to wear sunglasses, Jay said. Super cool, said Nana. After a while, though, the sunglasses made it hard to talk to each other. But they carried on because their world was so brilliant and shiny. Tina looked unhappy. This story's a bit sad. Where's the cave? Jay glanced at his Nana, who picked up the story. The giant used to live in a huge cave, deep underground. That's where the carbon giant felt happy. That's where it belonged. Yes, that's right, Jay carried on. The giant was roaming the world to find its way home to its underground cave, and the people were following it to gather the sparkly diamonds. The giant wanted to get home so much it began to run. The people had to chase to keep up, and everything was getting faster and faster. Just go slow, rumbled Moss beneath them. Yes, Moss, that's it. Eventually the giant grew tired. Soon its diamonds got a bit smudgy and smeary, and the light blazing from its eyes dimmed a little. The people's world wasn't as bright as it used to be. They took off their sunglasses and realised that everything was turning black. Their clothes were filthy and their eyes were watering. And still the giant ran, and still the people chased after him because they didn't know what else to do. And the giant started to pant big clouds of stinking gas. Pooey! Shouted his Nana. Tina was sobbing. Poor giant! She suddenly leapt up onto all 8 legs. Let's go! Where? Jay and his Nana said together. To find the giant's cave, Tina replied. Us? Said Jay. Yes, said Tina. Now? Said Nana. Yes, said Tina. How? Said Jay. Good question. Tina thought for a moment. Let's try everywhere. But my Nana can't walk very far. Spores, Moss suggested. Oh, yes! Brilliant, Moss. Great idea. Moss spores drift everywhere on the breeze. We can fly. Here, grab hold of some in your hands and then jump. But Jay's Nana was already grabbing handfuls of the springy spores and was beginning to rise. Come on, JJ, let's go by Mossy Transport, she grinned, eyes twinkling. As they floated into the air, they could see Nana's coffee cup, a brown lake on the garden wall. Tina, holding spores in 6 legs, pulled out a mini megaphone and called back, Jay, which way? I don't know. Hooray! All the best adventures begin with I don't know. Let's go! And with that, a warm breeze carried Tina the tardigrade, Jay and his Nana off in search of the carbon giant's cave. Their journey took a long time and no time at all. They visited Tina's cousins all over the world, in hot springs, in sand dunes and on mountain tops. They talked to tardigrades in rainforests, under the sea and deep in the ice at the South Pole. They had interesting chats, saw unforgettable sights, ate strange foods, and learnt a lot. But they didn't find the giant's cave. One more place to try, announced Tina. They plunged into cold blackness. I can't see a thing, said Jay. Are we in space? Peat bog, the tardigrade replied from somewhere nearby. It's where moss came from first. I know the carbon giant used to like it here too. Wait, what? Jay asked in surprise. You knew about the carbon giant before? Moss told me once. Why didn't you say? So you know how the story ends? There are a few different versions. I want to find out what happens in your one, Tina replied quietly. They felt around in the blackness for a long time, but still couldn't find the carbon giant's cave. This is too tricky, shouted Jay into the dark. There's no way we can help the carbon giant to get back underground. We're only little. Speak for yourself, said Tina. She paused for a moment and then added, Sometimes the answers are right under your nose. It just takes a journey to get back to them. Enough adventure. Time for a rest. So, dripping, hungry, and a bit forlorn, they landed back on the mossy carpet, as quietly as a falling leaf. They looked strange. The bog mud had caked onto their skin. Sea salt had spiked their hair, and quite frankly, they smelt like rotten cabbage. I am the carbon giant, joked his Nana, and started to stomp about. Jay and Tina joined in, stomping and roaring. Bounce, called Moss. Oh, yes! Moss is cleaning us, look, shouted Tina. Jump higher! Moss, chuckling slowly, became a wet, green trampoline. Water sprayed up in sheets and down in sprinkles as they jumped, making rainbows in the air. We're known as slow steppers, but sometimes I like to be fast, shouted Tina, whirling them around with all her legs. Then Nana opened her mouth and began to sing in words neither Tina nor Jay could understand. And they danced and sang until their legs felt wobbly and their hearts felt full. Then Jay did an enormous yawn. Now the end of the story, Tina said firmly. They snuggled into Moss's soft folds and sipped some more tardigrade tea. The people decided to stop following the giant, Jay's Nana began. They got their breath back and looked around. Some people started to chat, some shared food, some played games. And the giant slowed to a walk, Jay carried on. It was quieter now the people had stopped chasing. It yawned and lay down. And the people, and the tardigrades, don't forget the tardigrades, Tina chimed in. The people and the tardigrades took a huge mossy blanket and draped it over the carbon giant. Moss soothed the giant into a deep sleep. It melted down through bogs and trees, soils and seas. The carbon giant was in its underground cave, home at last. Oh, bravo! Clapped Tina, wiping tears from her cheeks. This is the best version of the story yet. Now it is time for you to go home, just like the giant. Goodbye, Jay. Goodbye, my Nana. It has been wonderful. Goodbye, Tina. Goodbye, Moss, they called back, squeezing hands and entering the wild rushing again, as the sound of Moss's slow goodbye echoed in their ears. And they were back, sitting on Nana's stone wall, as if nothing and everything had changed. The birds were tweeting, steam curled above Nana's cup of coffee, and looking down, they held soft green threads in their hands. The next day, Jay asked Miss Edwards if he could share something he had written, his first ever poem. She liked it so much he read it to the whole class. They liked it too. In fact, they painted it on the wall by the playground. Jay's Nana has started singing to Moss as she waters her garden. If you listen very carefully, you can hear Moss humming along. And if you listen even more carefully, you might catch a tardigrade calling for tea. Or even, if you're very lucky, the deep snore of a sleeping giant. And in case you don't go to Jay's school, here is his poem. Maybe you could write a song to go with it. One drop of rain won't quench a fire. One tree won't calm the weather. But tiny changes can be giant if we weave them all together. A thread can turn into a rope into a blanket can spread out like hope and heal our home, this planet. The end.
Thank you so much for staying with us. If you've stayed with us till the very end, I'm sorry we finished a few minutes late. It was really lovely that you were all able to make it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your sessions. Bye-bye.